16-year-old Tunde had learned to dodge both potholes and people. Lagos wasn't kind to those who didn't have money, and Tunde had none. He lived with his mother and younger sister in a cramped, leaking one-room shack behind a mechanic's yard. His mother worked as a cleaner at a bank, and his father had become a memory no one wanted to revisit. Tunde sold water and ground nuts on the road after school. And today, as the rain beat down, he stood barefoot beside the BRT bus station, soaked, with only one pack of groundnuts sold since morning. That's when he saw it. Something black, shiny, and out of place, half buried in a puddle near the sidewalk. A wallet. He looked around. No one seemed to be searching for anything. Carefully, Tunde picked it up. His heart raced as he opened it. Cash. Thick bundles. Neatly stacked Naira notes. He counted roughly. Nigerian Naira 1,000 was in U.S. dollars, crisp with a foreign cent. Then more Naira bills. A black credit card. A driver's license. Mr. Richard Aguda, it read. The address? Banana Island. Tunde swallowed hard. Banana Island? That was another planet. Richest of the rich. His stomach growled. He stared at the money. This could feed his family for months. But as he walked home, rain drenching his trousers, the weight of the wallet felt heavier than it should. He passed his mother on the way back. She was walking from work, exhausted, holding a torn umbrella. She smiled faintly. "Omo me, you sold something today?" He shook his head and smiled back. That night, while his sister snored softly, Tunde stared at the wallet. He looked at the photo ID. The man in it wore a suit, sharp and smug. He had everything. Tunde had nothing. But he wasn't going to steal. The next morning, Tunde borrowed a worn shirt from a friend and used all his savings to get a bus to Ikoyi, then trekked the rest. He reached the gate of Banana Island and showed the ID to the gatekeeper. The guard looked at him suspiciously. "You? Who are you?" "I found this wallet. I want to return it to Mr. Aguda." The guard laughed. "You want to scam him? Wait there." Tunde waited for over an hour. Finally, a sleek black car pulled up. The door opened. A man stepped out, designer sunglasses hiding his eyes. Mr. Richard Aguda. Richard looked at the wallet, then at the boy. "You're the one who brought this?" "Yes, sir." Richard snatched it, opened it, confirmed the money was inside. Then he laughed bitterly. "What do you want?" "A reward." Tunde was stunned. "No, sir. I just wanted to return it." Richard turned to his driver. "Imagine you think you're smart, ABI? You steal from me, then bring it back to gain attention?" "No, sir." Tunde's voice cracked. "I found it in—" Richard threw the wallet into the car and sneered. "Next time you see something valuable, mind your business. Foolish boy." Then he got in and drove off. The gate guards laughed at him. "You day craze. You suppose Don chopped that money?" "I told you," one added. "These rich people no day reward good." Tunde walked away, his face burning. Word spread. A few people even called him Moo for returning the money. In the slum, he became a laughingstock. Even his friend David shook his head. "Bro, you too honest. Now why we days suffer?" Tunde said nothing, but inside, something had changed. A few days later, as he helped a mechanic carry tools, a black SUV parked nearby. An old man in a bata watched him silently. Later that evening, the same SUV returned. The driver called him. "Are you the boy who returned a wallet to Mr. Aguda?" Tunde froze. "Yes." "Come." He hesitated. The driver smiled. "He wants to speak to you, but not Mr. Aguda." This time, the house wasn't Banana Island. It was a simple but elegant bungalow in Ikoyi. Inside sat the old man from earlier. His name was Chief Adeniran, a former judge, retired, respected. "You returned a wallet with $1,000. "That's rare," the old man said. Tunde nodded, unsure. Chief smiled. "And yet the owner mocked you?" "Yes, sir." The chief leaned back. "That man, Richard Aguda, is my son-in-law. And a fool." Chief Adeniran handed Tunde an envelope. "Take this." Tunde opened it. "Nigerian Naira 50,000. Come work for me part-time. Errands. Small office tasks. I want to see something. Tunde blinked. Why, sir? Because people like you, Chief said, deserve more than laughs. Over the next few weeks, Tunde proved himself. He was sharp, curious, honest to a fault. The chief taught him the basics of law, discipline, and decision-making. Tunde began to dream again. But Richard Aguda had not forgotten him, and he didn't like being embarrassed. Richard Aguda was livid when he heard that the gutter rat who returned his wallet was now working with Chief Adeniran, his own father-in-law. It felt like an insult carved in stone. He's grooming that boy. Richard scoffed during a dinner with his wife. What's he trying to prove? But his wife, Adora, didn't respond. She remembered something her father once said. You can't buy integrity. You either have it or you don't. And this boy had it. Chief Adeniran watched Tunde quietly. Every week, Tunde arrived early, ran errands, handled phone calls, and even stayed late to help archive old files. He listened more than he spoke. He asked questions that mattered. One day, the chief said, I'm giving you a scholarship. You'll go to school full-time. I'll cover everything, but you'll still work here on weekends. Tunde's eyes welled up. Why me? The chief looked him squarely in the eyes. Because you did right, when you had every reason not to. Richard wasn't done. He called a journalist friend and fed him a twisted story. Retired chief recruit's slum boy, secret illegitimate son? It made the local gossip blogs. People whispered. Some at the chief's compound even stared. But the chief only smiled. They tried to shame Mary Magdalene, too, he told Tunde. Don't worry. Time silences fools. But Tunde wasn't just hurt. He was angry. And for the first time, he wanted to prove something. At school, Tunde excelled. Economics, literature, law, everything the chief gave him. He soaked in like rain after a drought. One afternoon, a competition was announced. A youth policy debate televised with 5 million Nigerian naira scholarship grant and internship to a top firm. Tunde signed up. Richard Aguda, upon hearing it, smirked. Let's see how the charity case performs. The hall was packed. Cameras, judges, influential business people, including, coincidentally, Richard, who was a guest panelist. Tunde stepped onto the stage, nerves battling confidence. His opponent, a polished, suit-wearing student from Lekki with connections and attitude. But when Tunde spoke, the room fell silent. He spoke not just with intellect, but with lived experience. About poverty, governance, justice, and integrity. Even Richard looked uneasy. The judges gave him a standing ovation. The next day, Richard launched another attack. He pulled strings that Tunde investigated, called him a fraud, accused him of stealing documents from the chief's office. Tunde was summoned, but when the chief heard, he laughed. Let them come. If they search my soul, they'll still find Tunde innocent. Nothing was found. Instead, the investigator discovered a forged signature on a real estate document. From Richard. Chief Adeniran confronted Richard. I trusted you. You married my daughter. And now you forged documents under my name. Richard deflected. That boy is turning you against me. No, the chief said calmly. Your own heart is turning people away from you. Then he made a call to the firm Richard worked with. The very next day, Richard's contract was suspended, pending further investigation. The chief sat Tunde down. I'm old, and I've seen too many wolves in suits. But you, he pointed, are rare. I want to invest in you. Tunde was overwhelmed. He was offered full sponsorship to law school and something more. My firm, Adeniran and Company, will one day be yours, if you're willing to walk the long road. Tunde couldn't speak. He only nodded. One day, as Tunde left class, a familiar voice called him. His mother. Tears ran down her face. She hugged him tightly. I heard. The whole neighborhood knows. My son, the lawyer. Tunde smiled. Not yet, but someday. He gave her a small envelope, his first ever paycheck. Let's move out of that place, Mama. 2 months later, at a major legal summit, Tunde gave a speech on youth empowerment. In the crowd were politicians, judges, and Richard Aguda. He watched, stunned, as a boy he once insulted now stood as a rising star. Tunde ended the speech with, "When you throw away a seed thinking it's worthless, don't be surprised when it grows into a tree that shades the entire village." The room erupted, and Richard, silent, small, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Shame. Tunde arrived at the chief's home one rainy morning to find him resting quietly in his study. "I'm tired, Tunde," the old man said, his voice soft. "Not just of age, of legacy, of the noise greedy people leave behind. I prepared something for you." He handed Tunde an envelope, thick, official. It was a legal document. Tunde blinked. "You're making me a partner in your firm?" The chief smiled. "Not just a partner, a future leader. This is my final act before I retire. You've earned it." News of the appointment spread fast. A nobody from the slums was now being primed to head one of Lagos' most respected legal firms. The elite crowd whispered. Some ridiculed, but others began to watch and admire. Richard, meanwhile, seethed. His father-in-law had publicly snubbed him and empowered the same boy he tried to destroy. And worse, his investigation for forgery was moving forward. Behind closed doors, Richard began making plans. He contacted his old circle, people in law enforcement, politicians he had once helped launder money for. "Tunde isn't clean," he lied. "He's laundering money for the old man. He's just a puppet." It was a desperate gamble, but powerful people hate disruption. And soon, Tunde was summoned for questioning. At the Anti-Corruption Bureau office, Tunde sat quietly as officers questioned him for hours. They accused him of manipulating the chief, of stealing funds, of forging documents. Ironically, the very thing Richard had done, but Tunde didn't flinch. "Call my mentor," he said. Chief Adeniran walked in moments later, documents, witnesses, financial records in hand. In the end, it wasn't Tunde arrested. It was the officer who forged a report, bribed by Richard. Word spread. Richard Aguda was exposed, not just for the forgery, but for a trail of shady real estate deals, tax evasion, and coercion. His passport was seized, his accounts frozen. His wife, Adora, filed for separation. "I never married a monster," she told the press. "I married a mask." And Chief Adeniran? He made his final public statement. "Let this be a lesson. Integrity is louder than wealth. Character outranks charm." A filmmaker approached Tunde. "I want to tell your story," she said. Tunde was hesitant. "I'm not a hero." "You returned a wallet that could have fed your family for months," she said. "And instead of a reward, you got humiliated. That's the story people need to hear." Weeks later, the documentary premiered on YouTube. From Wallet to Wisdom, The Boy Who Chose Right. It went viral. Millions watched. And one unexpected viewer sat in a dark room, shaking with regret. Richard. Tunde didn't let fame distract him. He used the attention to start something new. The Bridge Initiative, a legal outreach program to help street kids access justice and education. He returned to his old neighborhood, not as a visitor, but as hope personified. The same boys who once mocked him now lined up to listen. "I didn't leave the streets to forget them," Tunde said. "I left to return with tools." One quiet morning, a black car pulled up in front of the Bridge Initiative office. A man in faded clothes and dark glasses stepped out. Richard Aguda, his once proud shoulders now hunched, his gait uncertain. I came to say thank you," he muttered. Tunde looked at him, calm. "For what?" "For returning the wallet, for not taking revenge, for being better." Tunde nodded, but said nothing. Some silences speak louder than words. On the 5th anniversary of the Bridge Initiative, a massive crowd gathered. Tunde stood on stage, now a trained lawyer, founder, leader, and symbol of resilience. He looked out the crowd, faces full of hope. He spoke. "When I returned that wallet, I didn't know the world was watching. But now I understand something. Doing what's right isn't about who notices. It's about who you become." The applause was thunderous, and somewhere in the crowd, his mother cried silent, joyful tears. The Bridge Initiative's new building was unveiled. At its entrance, a bronze plaque was installed. It read, "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. In honor of the boy who returned the wallet, visitors came from everywhere, and students who passed by touched the plaque like it was sacred, because they knew this wasn't just about a wallet. It was about a world that still had hope." 3 years passed. Tunde stood outside the courthouse in his black robe, adjusting his wig. Today, he wasn't just any lawyer. He had passed the bar with distinction, earned multiple awards, and been selected to represent a high-profile case for human rights abuse. As he entered the courtroom, eyes turned, whispers buzzed. He's the boy who returned the wallet, right? But across the aisle, he saw someone else. The opposing counsel was Richard Aguda. Richard was no longer the man he once was. After years of legal punishment, disgrace, and public ridicule, he had rebuilt a shadow of his career. Now, he stood with nothing to lose and everything to reclaim. "Hello again," he said flatly. Tunde simply nodded. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. And justice would speak. The case was brutal. Tunde was defending a group of artisans unlawfully evicted by a luxury development firm, which Richard secretly advised. Families displaced. Children left without homes. As Tunde presented evidence, photos, documents, voice recordings, the courtroom fell into a hush. These people were not just evicted, Tunde said in his closing statement. They were discarded like dirt by men who believe money erases conscience. He turned to Richard, but spoke to the judge. The law should not fear the powerful. The law should correct them. The judge's gavel echoed like thunder. "I hereby rule in favor of the plaintiffs." A cheer erupted in the courtroom. Richard sat still, face pale. The damages awarded, 150 million Nigerian nairas. The development halted. The victims compensated. As Tunde stepped outside, journalists swarmed him. He waved them off gently. But inside, he felt something shift. It wasn't just a win. It was closure. Netflix wanted the rights to his story. He declined. "This isn't about me," Tunde told producer. "It's about what's possible." Instead, he agreed to a documentary about street justice, featuring stories from kids like him, survivors, fighters, and he poured every naira he earned from legal work into Bridge Initiative, expanding it into 3 new states. One day, he was invited to a fundraiser. Location, Banana Island, the very estate where he had once been humiliated by a man in a black car. He arrived in a modest Toyota Corolla, stepped out in a simple navy blue suit. Inside, billionaires gathered. Tunde was the keynote speaker. And this time, he didn't knock at the gate. They opened it for him. After his speech, a young boy approached him, barefoot, dusty, holding a small plastic bag of bottled water. "Sir, I watch all your videos. You make me believe I can be something." Tunde knelt to meet the boy's eyes. "You already are something." He slipped the boy a card. "Come to the bridge. We'll get you back in school." It was full circle. The torch was being passed. Years later, Tunde returned to Mechanic's yard where he used to work. It was now a small recreational park, sponsored by the bridge. He sat on a bench under a mango tree, watching kids laugh, play, run barefoot. He smiled. No cameras, no applause, just peace. Sometimes, the loudest reward is the silence earned after a noisy life of struggle. Chief Adeniran, now old and frail, called Tunde his home one final time. He handed him a leather box. Inside was his original law certificate. "This belongs with you now," the chief said. Tunde shook his head, eyes misty. "You changed my life." "No," the chief whispered. "You reminded me why I ever chose the law." That night, the chief passed away in his sleep. Tunde buried him with the words. He saw the seed in a boy the world discarded and gave it water. The Bridge Initiative became a national institution. Its motto, etched in marble outside its new Lagos headquarters, read, "Do good quietly. Let the world make the noise." Tunde never chased fame, but the world gave it to him anyway. Books were written, statues were built, and generations of underdogs walked boldly in his shadow. All because one boy returned a wallet with $1,000 and expected nothing in return. Years passed. Ton was no longer just a name. He had become a movement. His story was taught in classrooms, shared in sermons, and quoted by politicians. One sunny afternoon, a private university in Abuja held a convocation. The keynote speaker was a surprise. A large screen flashed with an old photograph. A teenage boy holding a dirty wallet, half soaked in rainwater. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then the speaker walked out. Tunde, not in a suit, but in traditional attire. Humble, still grounded. He stood silently for a moment, eyes scanning the young graduates before him. Then he spoke, slowly, deliberately. Many years ago, I found a wallet on the street. It had more money than I'd ever seen, and every reason to keep it. But I returned it, expecting nothing. I was insulted, mocked, dismissed. He paused. But that moment, that test, became the pivot of my life. He pointed to the crowd. The world is always watching, sometimes with cameras, sometimes with silence, but mostly with memory. You will be tested when no one sees. Pass that test, and the right people will find you. The applause was thunderous. As he stepped down from the stage, a young girl ran to him and hugged him tightly. I want to be like you, sir. He knelt and whispered, No, be better.